Hello and welcome to TechEd 2020. My name is Miro. I'm lead architect in SAP IoT. And in today's sessions, I will introduce and walk you through some architectural concept in the context of Industry 4.0, where IoT plays a major role, and also give you a little bit of an introduction of some of the services that we have in our portfolio. Now, first, let me set a little bit of a context regarding Industry 4 and Industry 4 now. What does it mean? Where do we play a role from IoT perspective? Now, when we talk about Industry 4 now, so this typically refers to the digital transformation of industrial processes by connecting machines, processes, and people. Now, the term bears the digital and the transform. Digital usually means it talks about the ingesting, the connection of devices and sensors, collecting the information, vast amount of data that we can collect, to transform, enrich the data, and also to persist it from devices like vehicles, sensors, and also other industrial equipments. Transformation usually or typically means that we need now to enrich and contextualize this information that we captured from the sensors and devices and bring it into the context of the actual business process, manufacturing, logistics, or even asset management. Now, there are particular themes that we focus on that are where IoT is immensely important. And those themes are intelligent products, intelligent factories, intelligent assets, and empowering people. Now, just briefly, what does that mean? Where IoT is enabling those themes. It enables intelligent products where we have to make sure that the products are manufactured and configured to exactly what the customer needs. We enable intelligent factories that they can run autonomously by injecting and leveraging the data and intelligence from the machines. We enable intelligent assets where we make sure that they are connected and interlinked into those all processes and can be dynamically managed. For example, to prescribe maintenance or even monitor on a conditional base. And finally, we have to empower people to give them really the information and the tools that they need in their daily job. For example, doing some ad hoc support decisions when it comes to unforeseen events, and you have to act in almost near real time. Now, what do we need to cater to all those aspects? Let's have a look from a higher level of the architecture for Industry 4 now, and just briefly, I'll walk you through the pillars or the technologies that we need to sufficiently cater to the needs. We certainly need device connectivity. So from left to right, device connectivity. In some scenarios, environments, there is the need to have computing power at the edge, so close to where the data actually it arrives at an early stage. Then we need the capability to transform, ingest, and persist the data, even in the cloud. We need root processing capabilities. We need to enrich the data with perhaps master data or even transactional data, and make that consumable by our cloud applications, such as digital supply chain solutions or SAP S/4HANA and various other applications, even custom-built SAP applications. Now, once the data has been ingested and persisted, certainly there are other refinements that need to be taken care of. Either it's the refinement is taken care by the application themselves, or you have the technology at your disposal from the business technology platform to cater to the needs for business analysts or even data scientists, where you can integrate via SAP Analytics Cloud or the SAP Data Intelligence capabilities to transform and later run this data through multiple stages of refinement. Now, certainly this architecture, we have to cater to other needs from a technical perspective. It has to be multi-cloud enabled, so which means we have to run on different regions and different locations, etc. We have to cater to guiding principles when we build such solutions, which means we have to have an open and secure build solutions And we have to be open towards flexibility options to help the customers to enhance our solution offering. This is depicted here below. So certainly we are now offering even some integration points with other cloud provider services. Those are select services, which means focused on IoT, where we can integrate, for example, with Azure services like IoT Hub or Event Hub or Azure Data Explorer. But it's not limited to that, but from an SAP IoT perspective, those are the ones that we target. All right, now look at the enabling technologies for Industry 4 now in a bit more detail. In particular, focus on the edge compute and edge services that we provide, and also the SAP IoT services that we have in our portfolio, and see on a particular example flows what process steps we have to go through to enable intelligent solutions. The first scenario, certainly let's look, the device emits telemetry informations, and we run in an environment where we have certain latency requirements or even have intermittent connectivity, which means we cannot connect even to the cloud. For this particular scenarios, we have edge service offerings that you can deploy those service bundles onto a edge device or an edge server. This means it's the data processing and the transformations runs very close to where the telemetry data actually arrives, and you can already make some decision making at a very early stage. Certainly you can then, once the connectivity is back, you can certainly transmit perhaps aggregated data or even decisions back to the cloud solution. Now, this certainly requires some lifecycle management, and now we just go a little bit more to the middle section where we have the cloud portion, and the SAP Edge Services has two important service offerings. One is the policy service that caters to lifecycle management capabilities, like deploying those service bundles onto the edge device from a very central perspective. So you can also manage hundreds of devices from this particular service. And the other service that I want to highlight here is the business object synchronization service. Now, in some scenarios where you need compute at the edge, it also means that you have to cater to user needs at the edge. Let's say an example for a shop floor. You have supervisors who need to make decisions and create orders on the shop floor to really have not to connect first to the cloud, but rather have a direct impact and insight in some processes at the edge. Now, for this certain, let's say, business artifacts, data has to be available at the edge. Now, for this, the business object service takes care of the transmitting and synchronizing data between those edge applications and the corresponding partner applications in, for example, digital supply chain in the cloud. Now, moving to a different scenario where we don't have the need to for a compute power at the edge, but rather we want to connect directly the device to the cloud and ingest the data there. For this, SAP IoT in the center box in this diagram has various service offerings, from simple device connectivity management, where you can onboard those devices, model your software or virtual representation of those sensors, and already enable the ingestion into a highly scalable infrastructure that we have underneath. Now, when it comes to ingestion, it's basically forwarding the telemetry data to a message broker that we have, that we are operating. And from there, we're kicking in many processes, like the actual persistence into a big data store that is managed by SAP IoT, and also triggering high-level services, such as semantic enrichment, rule processing, and subsequently even trigger some business decisions based on the rule outcome. Now, certainly here, the consumption layer is a very important piece for SAP solutions and also for custom applications. Now we have For SAP digital supply chain applications, we have introduced a new service offering, which is called the abstraction service. And this basically helps the suite of digital supply chain applications to have a seamless access point to telemetry data ingested without really the burden of thinking about infrastructure complexities like, okay, where's my data lake? Where's what's the brokerage here? How do I handle data tiering between hot, warm, and cold storage, and so forth. So this is completely abstract to the consuming applications, helps them actually to safeguard their investment over time. Now, this data management option, we have enhanced it by now allowing the customers also to bring select services from cloud provider offerings. In this particular scenario, a customer has the choice to opt out from having a SAP managed data lake and ingestion, but rather wants to have the full flexibility in deploying his own cloud provider-based services like Azure IoT Hub or Azure Event Hub for streaming access and Azure Data Explorer for the tiered data persistency. What we offer is now really these integration points that we can communicate with those services and allow the time series data access, the time series data stream, and the SAP digital supply chain applications, for example, they can seamlessly consume those that data like it was being consumed from an SAP managed data lake. This certainly requires the customer to operate the solution, but gives him also the maximum flexibility also to integrate with other cloud provider services. So when it comes to flexibility, certainly there are also other options that the customer has at his hand. Through our powerful APIs, you can access the data through various other SAP technologies that are bundled in Business Technology Platform, which means you can use SAP Data Intelligence to inspect the data, read the data, funnel it to ML algorithms. You can combine that mechanism also leveraging SAP HANA Cloud data federation capabilities, where you can tap into a different data lake sources that you already have at your disposal, or even stream other log information, for example, into SAP Data Intelligence and cater to the needs of a data scientist. Now, looking into the service in detail, I want to give you a quick introduction to all the services that we have in our portfolio. Looking at this picture, we certainly SAP Edge Services and SAP IoT Cloud is on the right portion. It runs on SAP Cloud Platform and leverages many services that we need for connectivity, security, and persistency management for big data services, etc. On the left side, we have the service offering for the SAP Edge components. Now, I already briefly touched the scenario where you need to deploy services to the edge. So there's digital supply chain solutions where we have this continuity between cloud applications that have the logic that now you can deploy to an edge device, and those applications can run there. So you have this continuity also when it comes to code line. And certainly we also can cater to various other edge scenarios where you can deploy services, perhaps onto lightweighter edge, where you don't have containerized environments like, for example, Kubernetes. Now, those edge services, they have multiple capabilities that I will jump into quickly when I have a collection of many capabilities, but I will just quickly go through the cloud portion as well. So we have those categories where we need to have offerings in terms of device connectivity. and device orchestration and edge orchestration. We have the contextualization where you can say, okay, I'm bringing my own model. I don't want to have the semantics that SAP is offering within IoT. I want to integrate with business partners. We have the time series services that basically do the ingestion and the data management and orchestrating the big data lake. Rules and action services, geo services, and also the cloud provider integration that I mentioned also at an earlier stage. I have prepped for each of those categories a little bit more detailed slide, but I will just run quickly through some examples. Now, for example, in the SAP IoT Service Cloud, we have the rules and action services. Now, when it comes to rules, there is a differentiation between two types of rule evaluations. One is the process, the rules on stream data, which means you want to have this inspection at a very early stage while the data is streaming in near real time. So we can employ and define rules that can inspect particular data points. And that might be as simple as inspecting a threshold value, whether a temperature on a sensor has exceeded a certain value. Rules on persisted data give you a little bit more power because it widens the window that you can look at, which means you can employ now or define a rule that looks at a window of 8 hours, and you want to raise an event only when a temperature exceeded a certain threshold for a longer period of time. Now, streaming rules and on rules on persisted data, we have also other options when it comes to rule processing, and that's basically geo-based rules where you can define geofences, for example, and you want to employ now a rule basically when a vehicle enters a certain fence, geofence, and also leaves a certain fence. The idea behind this is that you can now identify segments, and the segment can be, is it the time of arrival and the leaving a vehicle from a certain location to identify trip segments. Or you want to also identify job segments where you want to employ rules, for example, for certain activities like you have a welding job, you want to inspect the aggregated values based on this segment. Another examples for our service offerings is the cloud provider integration. Certainly, it's now the customer choice, which opens up a lot of flexibilities towards the customer. We offer currently only the integration points for select services, so it's not open to all services. But as I mentioned, right now we support Azure IoT Hub and Azure Data Explorer. Just a brief look at the Edge service capabilities. I mentioned those also earlier, but the capability highlights certainly orchestrating the devices and Edge devices from a central cloud solution, and deploying essential business function services and enabling also custom solutions based on the streaming service and persistency service. Custom solutions can be, for example, a predictive analytics solution that you want to build and apply some machine learning predictive algorithms. Now with this, I'm pretty much at the end of the session. We have much more in this slide deck to cover, but certainly let me just go through the end of this briefly. You can certainly download this slide deck and browse through it. We have related sessions that I would suggest you to attend, like, for example, the 7 building blocks to realize the industrial IoT scenarios. So I can recommend that. Now, also, please continue our learning experience from SAP TechEd in 2020, deepen your learning experience and deepen and validate your SAP solution skills. And with that, I want to thank you for your attendance, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the TechEd 2020. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.